today we are all about what is your zone of genius. And I think it's an important conversation because the more we kind of know ourselves and our skills and our abilities, it helps us, right? It helps us to know how to better show up. It helps us to know what's possible for us. So welcome to today's quick workshop on finding your zone of genius. Today we'll talk about the value of visibility, what your genius can look like, the right questions to pull out the expertise, and the power of competition. Does that sound good? I hope it does. Hey, hey, hey. All right, so we're going to get right to it because it's going to be short and sweet, but I think super informative. Have you heard the old adage before, you get what you pay for? And usually when you hire someone to do a job for you simply based on the price, a lot of times we tend to go for the lowest price, right? You'll get someone, however, who is not as experienced, right, than the higher priced individual, because experience matters. And when you have experience, you can raise your prices, right? It comes at a higher cost. And the benefit of that is a lack of experience can lead to things like mistakes, and it can end up being more costly, right? And let's face it, like not everybody's honest. You would hope that the person that brings value is more honest with you. I think you kind of take a chance when you're kind of shopping around, going with the lowest priced person, right? But where am I going with this? What's the moral of the story? Successful businesses really stay afloat when they gain years of experience and build their credibility with their audience. These business owners, they learn from their mistakes. They adjust the way that they do business when something doesn't work. They're willing to share their knowledge with clients. And because of that, they really build a reputation, right? And people really want to work with them. People will go to businesses with a good track record and good customer reviews. Like that's just what it is. Especially when you pick the lower end and it didn't work out, you're like, all right, girl, stop playing yourself. Go find somebody that know what they're doing, right? So, it helps you to realize that quality matters. Right. So I want you to put yourself now into that equation. How many of you realize your experience is valuable? Or have you thought about what parts of what you do is valuable? Right. Drop what you do for me in the chat whenever you stop by on this conversation again, put that in there for me. Because a lot of times we don't even realize all that we bring to the table. And I think that's why this conversation is great today when we talk about finding your zone of genius, right? One of the reasons why I love to coach in this area is because so many of us don't see the value of what we do and we count ourselves out, right? When there are people who know less than we do, who are showing up every day and talking about the things that we actually have experience in and killing it. Does that bother anybody else? It surely bothers me, right? And like, it always makes me think, well, what's the difference between them and us? And honestly, I think the biggest thing, it's really complex, but I think the biggest thing is like, they don't have the same fears as we do. And I think, and that may also be related to like privilege, where it's like, you don't have to worry about what people think of you and that perceived judgment. I also think professionally, we come from a place of like ethics and values when it comes to our work. So we're a little bit more cautious in how we put our stuff out there. But at the same time, I really want you to take in and let it sink in that like you studied, you've done the hours of work, right? I'm a therapist by trade, and I've done the hours of work. I've seen people heal, right? I've worked with some very difficult cases and clients. I've opened up a practice. I've grown that. We're now building a coaching and consulting firm. I teach as an adjunct. I've sold courses. I've coached colleagues. But even for me, I'll admit that sometimes I still struggle with sharing my work and openly. Right? I think people that know me and have worked with me before know my capacity, but I still hold myself back sometimes. But what I understand that we have to embrace is if we don't show up, no one will know who we are. They won't understand the quality of our work. And really, we won't be able to disrupt an industry, because what's happening is there's also a lot of misinformation, and even beyond that, a lot of hurt that's caused too, because people think because they have an experience, they can now teach about it, right? Or they learned it just enough that they can now go, host conversations and be keynote speakers. But a lot of times they're opening up more than what they can handle, right? Or once you get past all the bright lights, you realize there's no depth here, there's no substance. And I think for us in this community, we bring more substance. I think us as professionals, as ambitious women who are just like career driven and really done the work, we've got substance. And that's what's going to make us different from everyone else. Right. And it's a little easier to show up in that space when you know your zone of genius, right? And you know what you bring to the table. It makes it easier to really be visible online and offline, to be vocal about what you do, to tell people what you do, to share your experience and offer your advice. And the reciprocal of that, I'm thinking of like a boomerang. If you put yourself out there, if you throw that boomerang, what does it have to do? It has to come back to you. So the reciprocal of you showing up and sharing your expertise and who you are is it just builds credibility. That's like the natural comeback to you. And in that way, credibility, you build that visibility, and that's how you're going to get to, to your people and your potential clients and things like that too, right? So I want you to get comfortable, even just starting there, talking about what you know and sharing that. Right. And hopefully that'll make more sense after our training today on your zone of genius, our quick little lunch and learn, or maybe it's a brunch and learn for you, depending on the time of day. Okay, so what is your zone of genius? What I will say too, I think when we talk about this and we do find it, I'll only help you if you agree to share it though, because I don't want you to just think about, oh yeah, I could do this. Oh yeah, I already know this, right? But then that's it. Because a lot of us, we're stuck in that place. Like we know that we are born and created for more. We know that something doesn't feel right about where we are. We're not really working in the way that we want to, but we stay in that knowing and we never act. Right. And I don't want you guys to be like, the best kept secret. I want the world to know your gifts and expertise if that's truly where you are and when you're ready. So I hope that you'll agree to share once you know, right? All right, so let's get down to business. How to figure out your zone of genius. I'm going to drop a workbook in the comments about this too, so you can kind of do this on your own. So stick around for that link too, or check the comments. But essentially, I'm going to walk you through some questions in terms of how to figure this thing out, right? So, all right, let's think about this. What do you think is better to be? The Jill of all trades who helps everyone under the sun and kind of offers a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like when I cook stew chicken, I don't know how I get there, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and we'll see if it comes together, right? Do you want to be that person that's a little bit of everything? Or do you think it's more beneficial to be a specialist who's experienced in one area, who can really customize advice and really has proven results in one area? What do you think? Right, and you can let me know in the chat if you're listening too. I think it's better to be the expert, right? Because while it's tempting to want to help everyone, and you may think this is the best way to reach your income goals, being the Jill of all trades while you build your credibility, it kind of like spreads you too thin. It spreads your time. It's hard to be focused. And I think it slows you down. I think for me in the beginning, it was a lot of everything, trying to figure things out. I was really clear on the practice and building that in the area that I wanted to be in. But as I started to grow in other areas, I think I was like distracted by a lot of things. It's helped me now because I've experienced so much. I can help people in lots of different ways. Like, how do we build courses? How to build things like workshops? How do we show up? How do become visible? Things like that, especially using social media and online. But I think I would have been a lot further along and a little bit more concrete and visible in my own expertise if I had settled onto an area. So to a degree, I think it's helpful to dabble because it does help you to grow, but it makes more sense to really build out the thing that you know, right? And work with that first, and maybe from there have some other things underneath it too, right? So I would say that if I had to say what was one mistake for me while I was growing in the beginning was just, oh, my sign just fell off the wall. Sorry about that noise. We gonna keep going. So in the beginning, it was just doing too many things at the same time. All right. But now it's a whole lot more focused, and I'm gonna share with you what that looks like for me now, because I've decided, at least on my areas of where I want it to be, I've kind of narrowed that down a little bit. So that's kind of where my focus is in terms of how I operate in my business. The one thing that kind of connects everything for me is this thread of like mental health, right? Mental health in terms of therapy, mental health in terms of, how I'm coaching, in terms of my consulting, and the things that I want to do in that area. So this is what that looks like for me now. So I'm a psychotherapist. Under that, I have a group practice, offer supervision, usually for the folks in the practice. I do teach some courses that we've gotten some CE credits for. And I do lots of trainings in the area of mental health. And I also speak on that now, building out the consultant and high performance area as a coach, both to help other women in business and also to get into more like organizations and corporate spaces. So really transforming the skills and bringing it in on a higher level and really figuring out the language as well to be in different spaces. So, if we're working with leaders, targeting stress and retention issues, some ways we may show up there, it's like workshops, we may do some webinars, things like that. And then, of course, the mindset coaching part for women in business, because the skills are transferable. The same thing we learned in therapy, the same thing people are struggling with, anxiety, overthinking, and how it's limiting their lives, that those same patterns show up in your business. So now I get to kind of coach you through that. Maybe it's not at the therapy level. Maybe we're not comfortable sitting in that space yet, but we still need the skills and tools to help us move through. So I get to do that as a coach. So I have the mastermind groups. I do workshops around that. I do trainings like this around that. I have the mindset and motivation community for women entrepreneurs of color. We're really cultivating a space for us to be together. Gotten into retreats and then one-on-one coaching, right? So this is what it looks like for me right now. So that's what we want to think about, like what could this look like for me, right? So as you're taking this in, let me know if you have comments, thoughts, ideas, drop that in the chat, even if I'm not able to respond, and take a look at it too, okay? But my question to you is, why do you think it's helpful to stay focused in an area? It feels like it makes sense to be in all the things, especially like, oh, I want to do this and oh, I want to do that. And sometimes it isn't just that we're all over in what we want to do, it's like in the how we want to do, right? Because there's so much to do. I can be in affiliate marketing, I can have books, I can speak, and I think as you grow your team and you have more support, it's also easier to take on those things, but you have to also know your capacity. If you're one person, if you're still working full time, if you're responsible for a family, like those things really dictate your time and your ability as well. So be mindful of that as you think about the how I want to do things, because I may not be able to do the same as XYZ because they don't have the same like responsibilities as me, right? So consider all of that as well, okay? But the main thing outside of considering your time when it helps to be focused or reason to stay focused is that people also then know you for what you do. It's clear, and then it's even easier for them to refer people to you. And in the beginning, I think that's important too. It's like you want to be super clear so you can get your clients going at a faster rate. You can be known at a faster rate within your community so people know that you do this, because that's important. You want to be able to like generate your clients and your income and things like that. So when you're a specialist in your field, your credibility really increases, and then you can target a little bit better your market, your partners, and you guys can do that because you already have the experience to do that, and it'll be like what you enjoy, so it like works, right? And once you got that, we can figure out the different ways to be out there, okay? All right, so I would say then it's much easier to be a specialist, and not just your community. You'll find that people will start to reach out to you outside of your community because they know you for that. I've had people reach out because they've seen me talk about things on Instagram. They're like, yeah, I heard your voice and I knew you'd be good for this. Do you mind being on this panel, right? You'll have folks reach out to you for different opportunities, be it podcast or media. You could then use that specialty to create things like books and workbooks, or like your particular program, your signature program. And all of that then helps to increase the revenue and your reach, and again, building your name and recognition. So, based on your experience, it just exposes you to more, right? And you become like that go-to person in the industry, which becomes important, just to make things a little easier for you. And the level of what you want to do, that's totally up to you. Like, you don't have to be like that next person that you follow. Like, you can be you and whatever that means for you, but just be open to the possibilities, right? So biggest takeaway, aim to be a specialist. All right. All right. So now how do you choose your specialty? That's where your zone of genius comes in. And I'm going to say that's going to start by asking yourself a few questions, including like, what am I really passionate about? And what do I love to do? So if you have some paper, I would start to jot these questions down, and you don't have to do this now, but certainly spend some time on it a little bit later. I did this workshop before, What's My Jam? And we really kind of focused on that. So I get to pull from that today. That's the beauty of being in this space and you've done things so much. It's easy to just pull from your own stuff. Like I was just like, girl, come show up and talk and do what you do. Right. And like, I just looked through my whole Google Drive of information. I was like, yeah, I did What's My Jam already. And it still applies in terms of what's your genius. So you got your expertise. I want you to start listing the skills that you've gained from that position, and not just the concrete skills like for me as a social worker, clinical documentation came with that, right? So I'm great at that and I can teach that, and it happens to be a problem area for a lot of people. In addition to that concrete skill, I'm also really good at problem solving, right? I can problem solve your documentation problems. I'm also really creative, right? So I can teach in a way that's creative where it makes sense. I can also make things, right? Like this workbook that I created here too, right? So there's other like sub skills that comes with these career professional skills. So we want to make sure that we have all that down, as well as what comes naturally to you. So like really make that list so it'll give you something to kind of work with, okay? I'll leave that there if you guys want to screen capture this, but I'm gonna, hey, I see there are, I'm gonna drop this eventually in the thing. And even if you've done this exercise before, it's great to keep looking at how has my skills grown or developed over time too, right? And I'll say stepping back from this in terms of the expert side, again, like I have resources that I've created. So as you do this work, you create things that you could then go back to and use as a reference, right? I'm going to reshare this, right? I'm going to ask people to drop their email so that they can get it, right? So I still get to build my audience and I get to talk to them more because now they're hanging out with me more. I'm going to repurpose this in other ways so it doesn't just stay here in the community, but I can also maximize my reach and maximize my ability to get in front of potential clients. So I think once you get started in this place of what I do, then you can get to look at, okay, how am I going to market to my people? How am I going to grow? How am I going to expand my reach? Things like that. But the beginning is knowing. Some other questions for you. What are you known for? Sometimes it's hard to see ourselves, so we've got to think about what people come to us for. What are you passionate about? I'm really passionate about serving minority women in business. That's what it is for me. And that's a big deal for me because I think as a minority woman myself, in stepping into this business realm, I didn't have all the support in the business building side, right? And even in my field initially as a therapist, it was hard to find people to really pour into me. So that's why I created the Mindset and Motivation community, because I wanted us to always have a community we can be poured into. I'm intentional there. We're trying to bring people into the community. Yeah, I just want us to have access to what we need, right? I don't think I had clear models of people in business to work with. And it's hard to grow something when you do not have the blueprint for it. So it means you have to get in the spaces to be in front of that, right? But women was important to me and my people was important to me. So that was who I was, one of the areas I was passionate about serving. So that's why that made sense for me there. Okay. So those are some questions that you can go into. Looking at the problems you solve is also another good one. Think about the things that you solve now through work. Think about what you can teach with ease, right? Those are all things that you can list, and that may help you out too, right? And then the rest of this, I'll make sure to drop that link so you guys can get into. Okay, so I hope it's starting to come together in terms of where can I start with my area of expertise and how can I figure that out, right? Okay, so I think the other part to this is once you consider what you're good at, I also want you to look at what are your own assumptions, because we are really good at getting in our own way. We may know all of our exceptional areas already, all of our gifts and, you know, the things that work for us, the things that people reach out to us for, but we may be stopping ourselves from being visible and credible and serving, right? So that negative self-talk, I want you to look out for that, and making assumptions about, what people will do or buy, because those are really big downfalls for us as business owners. So we are persons, we are healers, we're service providers, but we're also entrepreneurs and business owners. And we've got to look out for where our own emotions will sabotage the business part of things too. Okay. So, what's big for us in our community is thinking about if we're good enough. And it usually all comes back to that. If we're worried about people judging us, that comes back to, are we good enough, right? If we're not showing up and telling our stories and things like that, it comes back to like, will they listen to me? Do they want to hear this? Am I good enough to be heard? So that is huge for us in our community, and it often frees us in our tracks, right? That belief of, am I good enough, will always sabotage us, right? And if it's familiar to you, let me know. Right? Anyone know that belief that, am I good enough? Anyone good at getting in their own way? Let me know. I do it too, right? And think about it, like, how many times have you talked yourself out of something, out of creating a product or creating a class or going to like a networking event or speaking to someone while at something, right? Everybody has been in that space, right? Think about it though, like really assess yourself and push yourself. Like, where have I missed out on opportunities because I was really worried about how I would be received, or if I am good enough, right? How did my belief really get in the way? On a smaller scale, how many webinars have you canceled because you couldn't think of how to put like your own spin on it, or you couldn't find a topic, right? How many things have you put off because it's like, I'm not ready yet, it's not perfect, it's not good enough? Could it really be, sis, that you were just overthinking those things? How many times have you tried to write the book or create content or pursue your passion, but it never happened? Just became a dream deferred. So, this is really where the mindset work comes in, because you guys can't build a successful business on a tipsy emotional foundation, right? It's got to be steady, it's got to be firm. And that's a constant growing thing. Your evolution will make that foundation firm, but you've got to allow yourself to evolve too. And all it really takes is one thought to change your position, right? So instead of, I can't, well, I'm going to try and I'm going to see what happens. So I want you to look for those thoughts that get in the way, because it's great to know your zone of genius, but you've also got to know how you get in the way of that genius and what else you need to say to yourself so you can show up. All right. Okay. So I got time to leave one more thing with you. And when it comes to competition, and I want us to consider competition in our growth. Right? We've got the questions so far to pull out our zone of genius. We've got making sure that we check ourselves on how we think and our beliefs. And the last part I want to add to is your competition, because this is going to help you figure out what's valuable. I don't know if every skill set is valuable, but we want to test it out before we create around it. So look at your competition. That's really the best place to start. Okay, when you start to get a sense of your skills and your expertise or your zone of genius, I want you to just do some research around that. Take a look at what is already out there and use that to build out your genius, right? The thing is, you don't want something that doesn't have a market. A lot of times we think like we want something that no one else is doing. I want to be the person at this, but you sometimes have to work harder at that because people don't know it or understand it. So you have to do more back work to help them see that it is a problem and that they need you and they need what you offer. So it sometimes is better, / it is better to work in a place that is already established. Okay. Get in where you fit in. But you can still do that in a way that reflects your experience, your values, and your styles too, right? Competition is healthy. It means that there's a need. There's a need for your service, there's a need for your product, and there's an audience who's willing to pay for that service or that product, right? Okay, so hopefully this is clicking and making sense. And I want to step back again and tell you, because I'm teaching you, right? And at the same time, this is a experience as well for those in this realm of showing up for their expertise. Because right now I am in this community, I'm in the mindset and motivation community where I'm originally streaming this and sharing this, and I just see my one home girl or a hey girl hey hanging out and watching it, and I could easily feel bad about that, but I'm in a place where it doesn't phase me as much, right? And I had to check a lot of the thoughts around that to be able to still show up anyway, right? And I have to look at, well, what is the value to both the people that I serve and for myself? A lot of times we feel bad when people don't show up for us, or the things that we're doing doesn't really hit or land, but think about what else you can pull out from it. And that's so important, right? I get to pull out that you can look at too. I'm still practicing. I'm practicing speaking. I'm practicing right now. I'm working multiple things digitally in terms of the Zoom platform, sharing my screens, my notes, all of those things. So I get to practice that. So when I show up in spaces where I'm paid to do that, it's fluid, right? So I may be serving one and she may be getting a lot out of this, but I'm also serving myself because I get a lot of it too. Okay, so I want us to know sometimes that the thing that you feel bad about, you probably need to keep going and keep doing. And instead of selling yourself short, look at, what am I getting out of this that's really building my capacity to serve at a larger scale, right? And again, in terms of scale, this is not the only place I'm going to share it. One of the things that I've really learned is how to repurpose our work so it doesn't just stay in one place, right? It could just stay here, but there's parts of it that I can pull out and continue to reshare, where it then becomes valuable to a greater scale of people too. All right, so that's me stepping back and telling you what's happening for me from like the coaching speaking side. Now I'm gonna come back in and teach. All right, so competition and the need for your service. Okay, so there's gonna be people that's willing to pay for your service, even though you feel like other people are doing the same thing. I was at Dunkin' Donuts the other day, for example, and they're now selling lemon loaves. Do you know who else sells lemon loaves? Starbucks, right? And it looks like the exact same thing that Starbucks is selling, just their packaging is a little bit different. And I was looking at my kids and they were like, yeah, this is like the same loaf from over there. And it's probably from the same manufacturer, right? Because they're not custom making lemon loaves in the back. They're selling them in the little pretty package, right? So everybody can be doing the same thing, but there's still a different spin on it, right? How they package it in one store might be different from the other. The pricing might be different, that sorts of things. So even when you go to the store, there's so many of the different products or similar products, was the same product, just a different name, right? But people are purchasing it. There's slight differences between the brands, whether it's the ingredients, the durability, the packaging, right? The imaging, right? How they advertise it, how they market it, but they're basically selling the same thing. So don't think there isn't space for you, because there is. Okay, so the competition again, right? So I don't know if Dunkin' Donuts looked at their competition, was like, hey, they got a market for lemon loaves, it's killing it. Like, we need to do lemon loaves too, right? Oh, I see Art over there. She's like, I'm learning a lot. Let's go. See, that is encouraging to me. And goodness, the thing that we also need to remember as a community, when we show up for each other, it's encouraging. When we comment on things, we drop hearts, we share, like it's super encouraging, because it's hard to be in this space, again, audience of one or audience of none, and to keep going. So little things like that is powerful. So please don't dismiss the power of your presence. Okay, and that's for those in the audience and for those of you who need to show up and share your expertise too. Okay, so back to this thing, I'm trying to get you this last point here. And I keep bobbing and weaving from teacher to coach. All right, so yes, so other people can be doing the same thing, but you're going to come at it from your lens, which is what's going to make it unique to you, right? And the market research and competition is valuable in that way, okay? So use it to encourage you, right? Because again, as humans, if we can't see what's possible for us, we don't know how to go after it, right? Or we don't really know how to maximize, right? So we need a blueprint for things, we need support, we need accountability, but the visualization, what I realize is that helps a lot, right? If I don't know, give you an example. I was driving yesterday went to way out in bum hell, right? But I took a different route, and it was, I can feel the resistance. Like I'm not able to drive the same because I don't know the roads. I don't know where it turns. I don't know what's what, right? So I'm driving with more caution because I don't know, right? But as opposed to when you've gone a route, like you know it by heart, you know where it turns, right? So you're just flowing, right? And there's an ease to it. But to get to that ease, you have to kind of go through it. Because if I would have gone or driven that road multiple times, now I have an ease to it, right? So the fear isn't there, the resistance isn't there, and it's easier. I know what to expect. Right? When you don't have that in the beginning, it's hard to approach things, right? If you can't see it, you can't seize it. So I want you to start to pay attention to what's out there, and I want you to start to figure out, well, how do I also get a blueprint for what I want to do? For me, that's been around being around exceptional people and being around people that are already ahead of me, so I can learn from them. And that's a pattern for different parts of my life, not just for business, but other things, because I cannot effectively create or plan for what I want if I have no idea what that looks like. Okay. So surround yourself with really good people. Yeah. Because really, like once you get that support, once you get that vision, once you get even just coaching around that and develop a strategy, baby, you're unstoppable. Okay. Whew. All right. But market research, how do we use that? So find your competitors and just look at what they're offering, right? So if you are in the realm of, let me see, I don't know, I'll just say, because there's so many different coaches out there, right? But let's say you are a coach in the realm of, we'll just say like social media, right? So go and look and see what other folks are doing in that realm, see what products they're offering, see how they show up, see what people are responsive to, think about what might be a good fit for you. And you can kind of use that to guide you. I'm not saying to copy them, but use that to guide you, because then you already know people are responding in that area. If I'm a holistic nurse and I love talking about women's health, well, what part of women's health? So go look up other holistic nurses and see how they're showing up and see what they're sharing and what resonates with people, right? I was looking at someone the other day and she was doing a lot of work on just like mindfulness and breathing. And I'm like, oh, well, I love that too. But I never thought about incorporating it that way on like the practice side of my thing, of my work, right? So now thinking about how can I do that? Right. I saw someone else who shared something on like journals and what she's doing in that realm. I'm like, like I've always had the thought of how to conceptualize it, like the expertise part of it and how to lay that out. But one of the things we have to learn is how to cross over from our expertise to make it like every day. And I got a visual of that, and that just like snapped my thinking right there. And I was like, oh, this is how we can do that, right? In a more like marketable sort of way. So you learn so much from them, right? You learn how you can show up, what's really working, and that's where you can then learn how to fall into things that make it work for you. And you also don't have to work as hard because you see what's working, and you could use that to build out your blueprint as well. Okay. All right, so we've got, we talked about visibility and building your credibility. That's always showing up. We talked about the questions to pull out your expertise. We talked about the value of market research by looking at your competition. Competition is okay. Competition lets you know the thing you want to do like works, right? Life coaching again pops back into my mind. I think I'm thinking about you are where there's 8,000 life coaches, but you can focus on a particular part, right? Like, or you focus on like how our childhood relationships impact us, right? And really healing from that, right? So that's going to be different from another life coach that's really just general, right? Or someone who focuses on like divorce, right? So you can have this general sense to you, but I really specialize in this. My expertise is this. This is what lights me up. This is what I could talk about all day long. Like you sit down with me, just a coffee conversation, you're picking up gems, right? That's going to disrupt your life and into your healing, right? And that's what I want us to be excited about, because that's what we bring to the table. So be excited knowing that people need your lens in life. All right. So that's exciting. Give me a genius. Right? And I'm going to be doing a workshop on that too, really leveraging your expertise. And we'll take this to a whole nother level. And I can't even believe I've been talking for this long and it feels so easy to me. Like I'm loving on myself right now. Oh my goodness. And I love y'all for hanging out with me. What's up, Tati? I see you there too. All right. Okay, so what do I want to say? Yeah, so leverage is going to be good. The different ways to bring out your expertise, different ways you can show up, especially in terms of products. We'll be doing that next week, so look out for that. And I think this might be a really good place for you guys too, right? So once we know what we want to do, how to use our competition, then I want you to start thinking about what is your niche, and that's just who you're going to serve and just the specificity of it, like I just talked about with that life coach example, and what your market, what your people needs from you. Okay, you can really look at what's the problems that your market has. You can use your market research to figure that out. Think about how can you connect with your target market, what makes you similar to them, right? I'll post those questions in the chat for you guys that hung around. Okay, all right, because in the end, like your clients are going to seek you out for your personality. They will learn to know, like, and trust you, but you need to learn how to speak to them authentically. That's you. And then confidently bring your skills to the table. When you're attached to your zone of genius and you realize like, wow, this is something that I have, and it may not have felt like anything valuable for you because you've been doing it, right? But because you've been doing it, you are seasoned, honey. Right? So someone else is going to maximize on that. Okay. All right. Whew. So that was your whole zone of genius. Lunch and learn. We've been in so many different directions. If you guys have questions, drop it in the chat. I'll come back and answer it. I'll answer what I can now. Maybe we'll do a separate like Q&A for this. And of course, you guys can always reach me at amanda@amandaflood.com, and on Instagram. Hopefully we're following each other, instagram.com/amanda.flood, FLUDD. My expertise outside of therapy is empowering you to overcome the overthinking and perfectionism, whether we're doing that through personal coaching, accountability, if we need higher level therapy, back to coaching, if it's just the action-oriented strategies to keep you going, and especially how to show up and be visible in this online space. I'm here for that. That is my dream, right? Getting you out your head and getting you visible. And I'm sure from today, it seems a little bit more attainable. Hopefully it's at least a little bit more encouraged. Right? I'm also going to drop my what's my niche workbook for you guys as well in the comments. That'll be a resource for you. And when I have the link for the Leverage Expertise Workshop, I'll come back and do that. I actually taught that one at our 2022 retreat. So folks were able to see how else they could use their expertise, especially I think coming out of careers, like how can we do that in terms of like workshops? How do we do that in terms of courses? What are the ways that we can expand our reach? So we're going to be doing that one next week. So I'll make sure to leave all that information. Okay. Well, hopefully this was super helpful. If it was, let me know. I enjoyed just chit chatting. It was helpful for me. Right. Yeah. In lots of different ways, but all right, community, super good hanging out with you with what's my needs? What's your zone of genius? Okay, so awesome time. And I will see you guys soon. Remember to please leave your questions if you have them. Continue to follow, continue to tag a friend, tell someone this is a place that they need to be, tell them y'all need to go work with Amanda. Like, let's go. All right, guys, take care.